Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Abby and today I thought I'd share with you what I brought back from our recent trip to Colombia, as well as the projects that I have planned for the yarn stuffed inside of this bag. We went on this trip for a wedding. Our dear friend, the groom, proposed to his beautiful bride earlier this summer and they made plans to get married in October. They had a small courthouse wedding and invited close friends and family members. But since the bride is from Colombia, she wanted to celebrate the more traditional ceremony at home with her family. We were lucky enough to attend in person and we made the most out of our trip to Colombia. We spent 7 days there, so my boyfriend and I arrived in Bogota a couple of days before the wedding. We explored the city with one of Luis's friends. He met him through chess, and this friend is actually from Colombia, so we had a local tour guide to take us around the city. We started in the more central part of Bogota where like the government buildings are. It was so beautiful. That was where we met up with him the first day. We took a lot of photos and then from there he took us around the surrounding neighborhoods, pointed out a lot of different buildings, and he took us to several tourist attractions. One of which is called Monserrate. There's this teleférico, which is a cable car. So you buy a ticket and they'll take you all the way to the top of the mountain and it is beautiful. You're able to see how massive Bogota is. And then whenever you get to the top, there's stairs that you have to climb up, and then there's the church at the top that you're able to go into, and just the lookout, it's just so beautiful. Definitely worth the trip. And then from there, we went to Museo del Oro, which is the gold museum. That was fascinating. There was gold from ancient civilizations. It's just really cool to see like a historical perspective on the gold itself, and you did get to see a lot of different things on display. Definitely worth the stop. After sightseeing all day, we ended up back at the hotel, grabbed a couple of drinks, and then we called it a night. We were very tired, and we met up with our friend the next morning at this coffee expo. It was such a neat experience to be there at the coffee expo. We obviously were not there for business. Our friend was. He was actually interested in purchasing some equipment. We were just there to tag along. We tried so much coffee that day. I was probably so jittery and high off of the caffeine. It was a lot of fun though, and we did get to taste a lot of deliciousness. Gritar y que vencimos, que si es pecado el amor, que así no de explicación, porque es mandato divino. We purchased 2 bags of coffee beans. We had limited space in our bags, so we had to choose carefully, and we were on the hunt for the perfect bag. Our friend recommended buying geisha, and we ended up finding it, and we bought 2 bags. One was geisha, one was another one. But whenever we purchased it, they put the coffee bags in this little bag, kind of as a little shopping bag, so we could carry it around with us. And it's so cute. I really like it. It was our first souvenir from Colombia. Those were our first 2 days in Colombia. Then we had to catch an early flight to Villavicencio. That is where the wedding took place, and the flight, I had so much fun looking outside of the window. The landscape and climate changed a lot. In Bogota, you're surrounded by the mountains. It's overcast most of the time with like 60 to 65 degree weather, so you need a jacket. By the time we made it to Villavicencio, we were in the middle of the jungle. It was 80% humidity, and it was just totally different. But the city is so charming, and it was a great place for the wedding. We had a day to recover and rest, and then the next day was the wedding day. We arrived at the venue early so we could get the groom there, and they already had the table set up. It was so beautiful. And then the party started after they said their I do's and they walked down the aisle together. The first yarn store that we went to is called Entre Lanas. This store is huge. They had so much space inside and a lot of yarn to choose from. I would say the majority of the fiber content that they carried was acrylic, and they had a lot of different brands I had never heard of. One of them I did recognize because my friend that lives in Peru, she sent me some yarn earlier this year, and I did recognize that pink, like bright pink label. I don't remember if the brand is Domino or Perlita, but I did recognize it, so I saw that one there. But then you turned around on the wall and they had a lot more choices, and some of them I know they had like cotton yarns. They were 100% cotton, but they were the more tightly spun and they came in smaller balls, more for the amigurumi projects. And then you make it to the wall where I stood for probably 20-25 minutes trying to decide on the yarn that I wanted, and this was more like macrame type yarn. They had different yarn weights, but it was like the thicker cotton yarn. They did have a little bit of wool. My boyfriend was on the hunt for wool yarn, and they had like a small stash, but in my opinion it was too expensive for what it was, and I had a lot of yarn similar to that here, and that wasn't exactly what I wanted to take home with me, and we did have limited space. So let me show you what I purchased from Entre Lanas. Okay, the first yarn is called Macrame. It is by Kusi Kusi. At least that's what it says on the label. I'll kind of show you. And there's no colorways or anything that I can find on here. It just says that it was made in Turkey, and the fiber content is 80% cotton and then 20% other recycled fibers. I purchased this yarn with the project in mind that I crocheted earlier this year. So if you've been around my channel for any length of time, if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know I crocheted this raffia bag earlier this summer. And I made a vlog about it. I was trying to finish it on our way to vacation, and yeah, this is what I ended up with. And I have used this so much. Once I finished it, I kept a sock project in this always, and then I would just grab it and go wherever we went, and I just love it so much. It's held up really well. The idea with this yarn came about because I had some comments on that video with people saying that they couldn't stand the thought of, you know, crocheting with raffia yarn. And I can understand that, but at the same time, I thought that the raffia yarn I used for this one was very soft. I did not feel any discomfort at all whenever I used it. Maybe it was the brand, I'm not sure. It's discontinued at this point. I do have another raffia yarn coming, so I will be able to compare this raffia to that one, but I didn't find it rough on my hands. The only time I found it uncomfortable was whenever it was hot and my hands were sweating and it would just stick to my hands, but I honestly feel discomfort with any yarn whenever my hands are sweaty. But I thought I would try this project out with this yarn, because I think with the thicker cotton fiber and just like the way that this is spun, I think it will hold its shape similar to the raffia yarn. And I'm just really curious if I can, you know, if it'll work. So that's the idea with this yarn, to make a blue one of these. And this still has yet to be named, so if you have any ideas, please let me know. I am working on the pattern for that one. I know I've said that for so long, but I promise it will come. Maybe with the sample made out of this, that will make it a little bit easier or speed up the process there. The other yarn that I purchased from Entrelanas is very similar to the blue one, but it is a pink color. It's by the same yarn brand, Kusi Kusi, and this one's called Medusa. But it is a lot thicker than the blue one. I can try to compare here. So it is probably about double the size of the blue one. And I'll be honest, I bought this one without a single project in mind. They had this sample clutch made out of this like maroonish red color. It's really pretty. And I asked the lady how many, skeins of yarn it would take to crochet one of those. And she said 2. So I just doubled it so I could make a bigger project. And I'm thinking that I will play with this idea that I have in my head. I made another bag this summer, and this is what I use to take my items to the pool whenever we go swimming. And this is it. And I absolutely love this bag so much. This was so much fun to make. I love the panels and just everything about it I love. So this yarn I think is pretty similar in weight to the cotton yarn that I made for this bag. And I have this idea of making a smaller version of this bag, but making it into a backpack. And then I can play with the straps being maybe a different material, depending on how much yarn I have. So that's a thought that's going through my head right now. And then I have other ideas on Pinterest that I made a board for. I think I titled it Crochet Chunky Purses or something like that. I'll link it down in the description box below if you're interested in looking at those ideas. But that's kind of, if I see anything, I can just pin it there because I'm thinking about the project, but not actively trying to make something with it at the moment. So I'm just collecting ideas. And then I made a couple of impulse buys right before I checked out. I saw that they had T-pins by Knit Pro, so I bought a set of these. I typically use sewing pins whenever I block my projects, but I thought T-pins might be nice to have. Also, I have the ChiaoGoo needle set, and that's really how you can tighten your needles to the cable. And they only provide you with one, and I almost lost it the other day. So it's kind of impulse buy right there. Then I also bought this crochet hook, which has actually come in handy because I'm using it for a project now. And at the time, I don't really know why I chose a 3.5mm crochet hook. I just kind of grabbed one. But I really like the crochet hooks that are flat. They just feel really nice in my hand. And it's very soft, and yeah, I just bought it because I liked this type of crochet hook. That's what I bought at the first yarn store. We happened upon the second yarn store on accident. So on the way to Entrelanas, we took a taxi, and I saw this other yarn store on the opposite side. So once we were done purchasing the yarn at Entrelanas, we crossed through the traffic and we made our way to that yarn store. I didn't actually go in there because it was busy for one, and the store was super small, but it looked like they had most of the same type of yarns that Entrelanas had. I talked myself out of going into that one. We already had so much and I didn't want to weigh us down, and we were getting tired at that point, so we kept walking. We were gonna grab a juice or something before we went back to the airport. But on the way to find a juice, we happened upon this yarn store that's called Ilanas. And that's where I found this beautiful yarn. This yarn store was packed to the max with so much yarn. This place was very small compared to Entrelanas in the way of like walking through. So it makes looking at the yarn a little bit more difficult, but they do have a lot on display. They have these glass cases so you can look and you point and they'll get it for you. Then on display on the shelves in the back, they had these giant cones of yarn. That's what I was drawn to. I originally thought that it was cotton yarn, but the lady informed us that it was 100% acrylic. However, it looks and kind of feels like a cotton yarn. I don't know if you can tell, but the way it's spun is different than a lot of acrylic yarns I've seen, and it's this beautiful yarn weight that's like fingering weight, and I'm super excited. The project I have in mind has not fully developed in my head just yet, but I did make a crochet dress earlier this summer. Now that I think of it, all 3 projects that I'm mentioning were projects from the summer. I was very heavily inspired this summer, apparently. But anyway, that crochet dress, I struggled with it a lot, but it was so enjoyable. It was satisfying that I was able to get through the difficult parts of that design process, and I made something that fits. The one thing that I really don't like about it though is right at the midsection, it was supposed to hit like right at the bust, like underneath the bust, and then it would kind of flare out. But whenever I blocked the yarn or the dress, it kind of stretched out, and I needed the dress to be longer because like the skirt portion of it was super short. I didn't have a lot of yarn to play with because I only bought a certain amount and I couldn't find it anywhere else. So I was trying to make it work, but in the process of blocking, I think I stretched out the midsection. Also, the weight of the skirt portion probably has something to do with that as well. So anyway, the midsection is not my favorite. So I thought I could try to crochet something similar to that, but I could make it more of a crop top with a skirt. So it could look like a dress, but not be a dress where it's all attached, if that makes sense. So that's what I have going through my head right now. I don't have a stitch combination or even really a style just yet, but I know at some point I will, and this yarn will be turned into that idea. But this was fun to purchase because it was totally different than anything I've experienced. Maybe you have, but yarn stores around here do not sell the yarn like this. So you basically chose the yarn weight and then the color that you wanted, and they would grab a bigger cone of this, then they'd put it on this machine and they'd ask you how much of the yarn you wanted in grams, and they would just roll it onto a cone for you. It was cool to watch, but that's how I got a cone of this beautiful yarn. So that is all of the yarn that I purchased while in Colombia. I wish I could have brought back more, but I did have self-control because we had just a little bit of space, and I also didn't want to go overboard because I will overwhelm myself with all of these projects. So I hope to share progress with you in future videos, and I really hope that you enjoy videos like this and it inspires you to crochet or knit those projects that you really want. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and consider subscribing to my channel if you'd like to see more videos like this one. I hope to see you in the next video.